Hello and good day, and welcome to GMA Sports. My name is Ryan Phoenix, contributing football writer to GMA News Online. And today, we are honored because joining us are two distinguished guests. First up, Miss Natasha Alquiros, President of the Philippine Women's FA and former national team player. Natasha, are you there?
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
And next, of course, is Miss Ceres Lina, one of the incorporators of the Philippine Women's FA. Ceres, how are you today?
Hi, Ryan. Good afternoon. I'm great, as everybody is a football fan should be right now.
And talk about being a football fan. What a great time to be fans of Philippine football in the Philippines, especially of women's football, especially because 2 days ago, the unthinkable, the historic happened. And how are we all feeling today? Because the Philippine women's national team has actually qualified for the FIFA Women's World Cup. Natasha.
Yesterday I really was just lost for words. A lot of tears, a lot of happy tears, and just overwhelming sense of joy. Something that women's football has worked towards for so long is finally paying off. We are finally getting noticed, and we have finally reached the peak in terms of getting to that next level. There's still so much more potential we can go for, but just the fact that the hashtag remember the goal has finally been achieved and we have made it to the World Cup. I'm just ecstatic about everything.
Ceres?
Well, I was with virtually with Natasha and yourself, Ryan, right after the match. And I was on a Zoom call with Natasha, and then we were on Twitter with Ryan right after the match. And yeah, absolutely in tears and ecstatic after the match. And I still am. It's amazing what this team has achieved in our lifetime. That's the thing. Like that, this is something that a lot of us just dreamt of happening, and it's here. It's happened finally.
Ceres, I do remember a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, and quite a
Yes.
lot of words that cannot be repeated
Oh,
on
you should heard
national
Natasha.
TV.
You should have heard Natasha on Zoom.
Well, we might have the chance, but unfortunately, I think the emotions are so high at that point in time. And take us back to what happened 2 days ago. Of course, we beat Chinese Taipei in the quarterfinals of the Asian Cup, which was of course the qualification towards the FIFA Women's World Cup. But talk to us about the emotion of what you felt on that day, just before the game, during the game, and especially during the penalty shootout as we tried to beat Chinese Taipei. Let's start with Natasha, maybe.
Well, before the game, it was more of just manifesting, knowing that we're gonna win. We're gonna win. I actually already knew and felt that this is our chance. This is our moment. Ever since the first group stage game, since we beat Thailand, I think that that was the most important game to win. And true and lo and behold, when we won that game, we had that momentum going on for us. And it carried on all throughout the group stage. And when we went to that quarterfinal game against Chinese Taipei, we were able to score first in the 47th minute, care of Quinley Quesada. And, you know, we knew already, we're like, we're going to win, we're going to win. It just, I guess, took a bit longer because Chinese Taipei were able to get one back at the 83rd minute, care of leaping with a wonderful shot. I'd say could be maybe the goal of the tournament so far. And it just took longer, but I don't think we ever lost belief that we were not going to make it. So the stakes were high, everyone's emotions were high, and I think that's why the breakdown of a lot of players, a lot of fans, and the how joyous we were after was because it was a hard and long road. Usually a game is 90 minutes, but this game went on to 120 minutes and on to penalties after that. And so I'll take you a bit through the how we felt during the penalties. And that was just when, um, as you talk about like in football, right? The first kickers, so if Chinese Taipei, since they were able to shoot first, a little bit of the odds go in their favor to win the game. And then, of course, we were the first team to miss. So the odds again for them stack up. And even though the odds were just completely against us, I don't think any player from them, none of them gave up, none of them lost faith. All of them, held head held up high. And so us, with the people watching, we knew that, we can pull a miracle out of this. Like we can still do something. And even with an interview, I think that was with Olivia, where she even mentioned herself that when the ball hit the post, the went left for their chance to win. It was an instinct in her. Like Jesus took the wheel, and it was time for her now to do her part. And what she did, she really came out big for the team, being able to make a save, to score the fifth penalty that brought us into sudden death, to make a second save again. And so everyone, with their fingers crossed, Serena Bolden to take the penalty, the final kick. And that's how you know that this is one of the games for the books, because everything went on down to the line, down to the wire, down to that last shot. And that was the only time we were able to completely celebrate. And, it brought the whole Philippine football into a frenzy, a fiasco of just complete and utter chaos and celebration that we are going to the World Cup. So it was just a wonderful game, high drama. It was never just always on our side, because, again, as we said in the game, when Chinese Taipei scored at that 82nd minute, was that the momentum shifted towards them. And so it took us a while to get our bearings back, and it had to go down to penalties. But it's one for the books. I don't think I don't think until the day that I die, I'm not gonna forget about that game and how much that game will change the landscape of women's football in the Philippines.
Just to FYI to people watching, Natasha is actually 7 months. Is it on the way? So I don't
Yeah.
think it's very good for pregnant people to be watching that sort of an exciting game. But grabe, no? That emotion that there, and that was maybe in Manila time. It was mga 12:30 in the morning, I think, Ceres. And I'm sure the neighbors, if they were sleeping, were definitely woken up.
Penalties were past, like it was like it started like 12:40 or something like that. Yeah, definitely. I didn't care. I'm sorry, neighbors, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I woke up my mom, and she just made sure it was. Is it football? And I was like, yes, it's football. And then she went uh, back to sleep. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
nasana na yata sa'yo watching football.
yeah,
And
yeah, of course. That's why she just asked, "Is it football?" And then I was like, "Yes," and she was like, "Okay." She
yeah,
left.
but this result against Chinese Taipei was actually just part of what the how many games we played in the tournament, because you have to go to the group stage first. We have to actually get out of the group. So we were able to beat Thailand for the very first time. We lost to Australia, and then we beat Indonesia. That's why we went out of the group stage. Now, Natasha, a lot of people may not really be very familiar with women's football, especially Southeast Asian women's football. So when we beat Thailand in the first group stage, a lot of people saying, this is a historic game. We've never beaten Thailand. You've played against Thailand, right? And you know the quality that they possess. Talk to us about the importance and the significance of the victory against Thailand, and why is it so difficult to beat them, and how it meant to you that finally we were able to beat Thailand.
All throughout my playing career, Thailand has made me cry so many times. Losing to Thailand, a lot of heartbreaks really, during my playing years up until 2016. And the reason why beating Thailand was so important is because we have never beat Thailand. So that was the first check in the history books that we made. So there's a long list now, and we're continuously adding to that checklist of history and all these impacts that the national team are doing. And I guess the reason why going against Thailand also has there's so much history to that, because if I take you back all the way to the Asian Cup qualifiers in Bangladesh um, back in 2013, was that we lost to Thailand by one goal to make it to that next stage of the Asian Cup qualifiers back then. And of course, there are counterparts in the SEA Games, in the AFF tournament, in the AFC tournaments. And so we knew that it was going to be a tough task to go against Thailand and to beat them. But we also knew that in our group stage, in terms of ranking, we know that Australia would have been really hard to beat. So what is doable? The doable thing would have been to beat Thailand. And then the third was Indonesia. I already knew we were going to beat Indonesia. But to beat Thailand, we already had that one step inside the door. That's how I said earlier that the reason why beating Thailand was so important was because I knew that if we beat Thailand, then we're already one step closer into making it into the World Cup.
The match against Thailand was our 13th match against them. So that's actually in the PWFA we were calling it, lucky 13 because we finally, got one over them. So yeah, after the same as Natasha, after the draw, we were all going wild as well when we got the draw for the Asian Cup. Because we knew it. We knew we were like, yeah, okay, let's hold as far as we can against Australia, but Thailand and Indonesia, let's focus on that. And yeah, again, between the two, and all respect to our neighbors, Indonesia, we knew we could do that. So it was really just like, okay, we have to really really win against Thailand, and they did. So
1-0 was the score against Thailand. But just to also stress the importance of having beaten Thailand. If we hadn't beaten Thailand, we would have been in their position and would have faced Japan in the quarterfinals, which would have been a really, really tough task to beat, a team like Japan, which will, of course, if we beat teams in the quarterfinals, we're going to be in the Women's World Cup, like what we accomplished now against Chinese Taipei. So that was really big. But Natasha, going back to you, you're living in Thailand now, right?
Yeah.
So how's the dynamic there?
It feels so good because especially since our men's team lost to to them in the Suzuki Cup, it was just like now it's like, well, the women, it's our turn to get one over you guys. And
And
it's just ecstatic, to be here and to know that for the first time, like in our history, in our football history, that we beat Thailand, because there was a time that we were very close around 2005 Southeast Asian Games, and then around 2007, 2008, Thailand pulled away. They started training abroad. They started getting more funding, more support. They really took women's football to that next level, that level of seriousness. And that translated results for them because they made it to the World Cup last time around. And so for us, who have been losing to Thailand, and sometimes even by big margins, 7-0, 6-0, and then to go back to 4-0, trying to close in the gap with them, and this time to surpass them, it means a lot for the growth and the development of women's football and the national team. It really is a lot for their ego as well, to know that this was a hurdle that we've been trying to get over, and now we know and we can say that we can do it.
you talk about Thailand being and the Philippines. Maybe is it 10, 15 years ago being sort of the level is almost the same. Um, what happened then to Thailand? What did they do right? You think that probably we did also. That's why we reached the same level, or what we could still do, because I know Thailand has been to the World Cup 2 times. It's our first time in 2023, so they must be doing something right. That's why they're always in the big stage of women's football.
I guess for me, like the way that I see Thailand and how they've prepared and how they prepare also. It goes beyond just what's on the pitch. It's also their preparations in the country, or how many football fields are available to them. The It's just that, if let's say like sa Pilipinas, everywhere you go, laging may basketball court. Parang dito sa Thailand, everywhere you go, every time you drive to anywhere, you'll see at least 4 to 5 football pitches. So, just even down to that basic scale like that, it's so available, easily available for anyone to be able to play. And then you include the Thailand Football Association, their funding, and of course also the outside funding, the support from private sponsors that they have put in to their women's national team. And even the simple fact of like their goalkeepers are sponsored by APD, even a brand that my husband's also sponsored by, but their women's national team, they're also sponsored, and they don't have to think about their kits, their gear, all these things that are just given to them already, readily available for them.
Talk about qualifying for the World Cup, for FIFA Women's World Cup. Some people may not be very familiar with the magnitude, the scale of this tournament. Can you talk to us a little bit more, Ceres, about how big this qualification to the World Cup is for the Philippines, and especially for women's football?
Okay. The World Cup surpasses the viewership. Even the Women's World Cup surpasses the viewership of, well, let's stay with something Filipinos are familiar with: NBA championships. No matter how many people in the world, and I have no hate towards basketball. I love basketball. But yeah, okay, NBA championships bigger. I mean, it's already bigger than the FIBA, right? Let's face it, viewership wise. Uh, yeah, no, we're talking billions of people watching this tournament. Billions and billions of people. It's not just one continent. It's not just two continents. It's all the continents where there are humans uh, and penguins. Um, People tune in to watch the World Cup. And especially in the last, of course, the Women's World Cup started way later than the Men's World Cup, but it's only been around for, is it 31 years? Something like that. But the impact of the World Cup is felt throughout the world. And for us to finally qualify to step onto that stage is huge. It's showing the rest of the world that we can do it. We can stand toe to toe with the best of them. That's what the impact of this World Cup is. We've been getting so many congratulatory tweets and mentions and stuff from everywhere. Like, oh, apparently we made a lot of fans in India because the Indian press they love the girls. The Australian press love the girls. I don't know about their relationship with Coach Allen, but they love the girls, and a lot from Europe. You can see. I know Ryan also follows a lot of the international press people, and um, yeah, it's like we're introducing our country to the football world, which is the rest of the galaxy aside from our little space here in the Philippines, and that's what it is. It's like um, showing the introducing ourselves, meaning, hey, we're also here. It kind of feels like a bit like the Cool Runnings, the movie. It's like, what does Jamaica? Why is Jamaica sending a bobsled team to the Olympics? It kind of feels like that. It kind of feels a little like, where did these girls come from? And they're Filipinas, and that's the impact. It's like people will research on how we did it and whatever, and let them research on the Philippines. And I think that's great. I think it it gives our countrymen everywhere, because we have countrymen everywhere, a reason to smile, a reason to cheer for a country who hasn't had it very well the past few years. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is, a point of pride that finally we made it to the biggest sporting stage in history in the world.
Our little space that is the Philippines is gonna gate crash the biggest football party in the world.